She said, I was just stressing, but the weekend getaway she took with him told the truth. I didn't even recognize her when she walked in. It wasn't just the change in her expression, the coldness in her eyes that hadn't been there before. It was the way she held herself, a certain distance I couldn't ignore. She looked fine, but not in the way she used to. It was as if she was playing a part, like she was pretending to be the person I thought I knew. And when she saw me, she hesitated before saying anything, almost as if she was trying to read my face to see if I already knew. But I did. I already knew. I'm home, she said, her voice softer than usual, like she was testing the waters. How's your night? I felt a wave of anger rise in my chest, but I swallowed it down. I had to stay calm, at least for now. It had been a few days since she'd left for that work thing she'd told me about. A weekend retreat with her colleagues, she'd said. A break to recharge. But the message I found on her phone, an innocuous text thread between her and him, told a very different story. I still remember the exact moment I found the message. I wasn't snooping, at least not on purpose. She left her phone open on the kitchen counter. It was just there, next to her purse. I wasn't even thinking about it when I walked by, but I glanced down and I saw his name, Mark. My heart dropped into my stomach. The message was simple, just a can't wait for the weekend, baby, but it wasn't the content of the message that struck me. It was the intimacy behind it. The way he signed it off with a red heart, like it was something normal between them. The kind of sign-off I hadn't seen her use with me in months. She'd been stressed, she'd said. The stress of work, of life. But that was more than just stress. That was something else entirely. I could feel the pulse of anger building in me as I stood there, reading the words again and again, trying to make sense of it. I knew I should confront her then. I knew I had the right to. But I didn't. I couldn't. I wanted to keep pretending everything was okay, at least for a few more days. I didn't want to face the truth. But that night when she walked through the door, I couldn't pretend anymore. Not when I already knew what she'd been doing. So, I started, my voice calm but with an edge to it that I couldn't mask. How was your weekend? She gave me a tight smile, dropping her purse on the table and walking into the kitchen to grab a bottle of water. It was fine. Busy but good. You know how work things go. I stared at her back, willing myself to hold it together. I could feel my chest tightening as I fought the urge to ask outright. I had to tread carefully. Busy with Mark? Her body stiffened, and I saw her hand falter for a second before she twisted the cap off the bottle, pretending not to notice the question hanging in the air. Mark? She repeated, her voice suddenly tight. What do you mean? I could hear my own pulse in my ears, my hands itching to take hold of something. I stood up and walked toward her, my gaze never leaving her face. I mean, the Mark you went to this work retreat with. The one you were texting. The one you were sending hearts to while you were stressed. Her face went pale. I saw the way her shoulders dropped for a split second, but then she straightened up and put on that mask of indifference that made me want to scream. You're stressing, Ben, she said, avoiding my eyes. I told you I was just stressed. I didn't mean anything by it. Mark's a colleague. You know that. I shook my head, my mouth dry as I took a step closer. No. I know that's what you said, but it doesn't make sense. You've been stressed for months now, but this feels different, Julia. Why didn't you tell me the truth? I'm telling you the truth, she shot back, her voice defensive now. Nothing happened. I just needed a break. I told you I needed time for myself. I didn't know whether to laugh or cry. A break from me? From us. I couldn't keep the bitterness out of my voice. Or a break from your marriage? Her eyes widened, and for a moment, I thought she might actually say something real. But instead, she turned away again, her voice shaking as she muttered, I'm not doing this with you, Ben. You're overreacting. It's not what you think. I stared at her, feeling like a fool. How could she stand there, looking me in the eye, and say that with a straight face? How could she act like everything was fine when I knew? I knew. She'd spent the weekend with him. How was I supposed to just let this go? I swallowed hard and turned to leave, but she reached out, her hand on my arm. Ben, please don't walk away, she said, the desperation in her voice cutting through me like a knife. I swear, nothing happened. We just talked. You're the one I love. I swear, it's just the stress got to me. I didn't know how to handle it, and I didn't want to drag you down with me. I shook her hand off, the touch burning where her fingers had gripped my arm. "You didn't want to drag me down with you, huh?" I laughed bitterly. "But you were okay with him being there, with him being the one to comfort you, huh?" I could see the guilt in her eyes, but it was buried beneath layers of defensiveness. "It wasn't like that," she whispered. "It wasn't. I don't know what it was like, Julia," I said, my voice shaking with frustration. "But whatever it was, you couldn't have been that stressed if you're already making plans with him." Her face paled, and she took a step back, like she was trying to distance herself. "Ben, I'm not the person you think I am." I laughed again, but this time it was hollow. "I think you're exactly the person I'm seeing right now." It was a Saturday night when everything finally came to a head. I had stayed at my friend's place for a couple of days to clear my head. Every time I looked at Julia, I felt like I was seeing a stranger. It wasn't just the betrayal that hurt. It was the fact that, even now, she wasn't being honest with me. She wasn't even close. The photo I had seen, the subtle hints in her messages, it all pointed to something deeper. And I couldn't just sit back and wait for her to figure things out anymore. That evening, she asked me if I wanted to talk. Of course I did, but not the way she thought. Not about how much I loved her or how I wanted to fix things. I was done with all the maybes. I wanted truth. When I walked in the door, I could feel her watching me, like she was waiting for me to give her a sign that I was ready to forgive her. But I didn't. I wasn't ready. I couldn't be. "I know you've been seeing him," I said quietly, staring at the floor. "I know you've been lying to me. I don't know what else I'm supposed to believe anymore." She stood frozen in place, her face filled with a mixture of guilt and something else. Regret, maybe. But it wasn't enough. She wasn't apologizing for the right thing. "I'm sorry, Ben," she said, her voice breaking. "I'm so sorry." I shook my head. Sorry's not enough anymore. Part 2. The silence between us felt thick, like the air had gotten heavier in the last few minutes. I could barely breathe, barely think, as Julia stood there, her eyes flickering nervously between mine and the floor, as if searching for an escape from this conversation that she clearly didn't want to have. "I never meant to hurt you, Ben," she said quietly, her voice trembling. But it didn't land the way it should have. It didn't hit me like an apology should. All I could think was how many times I'd heard that line before, how many times I'd watched her apologize for things that were never truly fixed. "Then why did you do it?" I asked, my voice quiet but hard. The words felt jagged coming out of my mouth, like they didn't belong to me anymore. Like something in me had already started to shut down, pulling away from her before I even realized it. "Why him? Why now?" She bit her lip, looking down, and I could see her fighting back tears. But I wasn't sure I cared anymore. Not after everything. Not after I'd spent hours over the last few days, replaying that damn message over and over in my head. I don't know," Julia said, her voice shaking. "It wasn't planned. It wasn't supposed to happen, I swear. I was going through something, Ben. I was feeling lost. And Mark was there. He just listened to me. He was just someone I could talk to." "Talk to," I repeated, my voice rising without me meaning to. "Talk. Is that what you call it? Talking with him while you're in a hotel room, sharing pictures and sending him hearts like you were in some kind of relationship with him? Is that really all it was?" She winced, and her eyes filled with tears, but I couldn't let myself feel bad for her. Not now. Not when she had made me feel like a fool. "Ben, please," she said, stepping forward and reaching out for me, her hand hovering just above my arm before dropping to her side. "I never meant for it to go that far. I really didn't. It was just a temporary thing. It didn't mean anything, but it did mean something. That's what I couldn't shake." It wasn't just the lies about the weekend that she had sworn was just a work thing, and that she was stressed and needed some time to herself. It was the fact that she had already given him a part of herself that she had stopped giving me months ago. It wasn't just physical, though. It was the emotional distance, the fact that she had let someone else in while I was here, giving her every ounce of myself. "You're telling me it didn't mean anything?" I asked, my voice dangerously low. "You went away for 2 days with him. You stayed in his room, shared moments with him, talked about your life, your problems, and you don't think that means anything?" She hesitated, looking away, clearly trying to process what I was saying. And for a moment, she just stood there, her shoulders hunched, her face so tired it was almost like she didn't recognize herself. But I wasn't going to let her off the hook. Not this time. I didn't know what else to do, she whispered, voice breaking, her tears finally spilling over. I felt like I was drowning, Ben. I felt like everything around me was falling apart. And he was the one who helped me feel seen again. It was just easier with him. It felt like I could breathe when I was with him. I felt a sharp pain in my chest, as though someone had taken a knife and twisted it slowly, making sure I could feel every inch of it. I had always been there for her. I had always been her safe space, her rock. But now I was just someone she had to hide things from. Someone who wasn't easy enough anymore. So you're telling me you needed someone else, I said, barely holding it together. You needed someone else to make you feel alive, to make you feel seen. While I'm here, fighting to keep us together? I never wanted it to be this way, she said, stepping closer, her voice pleading. I never wanted to hurt you. But Ben, I've been so unhappy, so lost. And I didn't know how to tell you. Her words hit me harder than anything else. Because in that moment, I realized something I hadn't fully allowed myself to understand until now. Julia hadn't just made a mistake. She had made a choice. She had chosen to lean on someone else instead of trying to fix what was broken between us. And maybe, just maybe, that meant she had already given up on us long before I knew it. I can't keep doing this, I said quietly, finally looking at her for what felt like the first time in days. I can't keep being the one who's always tried to hold us together when you've already walked away. Her face crumpled as she reached out for me, but I stepped back, away from her touch. I couldn't even bear the thought of her hands on me anymore. Ben, please, she begged, her voice cracking. I love you. You're my husband. I never wanted to hurt you. Please just... No, I said, my voice firm, cutting through her words like a knife. You chose to hurt me, Julia. You chose him, and I don't know if I can ever forgive you for that. I turned and walked out of the room, the weight of the finality of it all settling over me. I didn't know where to go from here. I didn't know what would happen next. But for the first time in a long time, I knew one thing for sure. I couldn't keep being the person who let myself get walked on. I stayed with my best friend, Jake, for a few days after that. I couldn't go back to the house, our house, because I didn't know what I would find if I stepped through that door again. I didn't know if I could look at Julia the same way, or if I would even want to. The more I thought about everything, the more it hurt. Julia wasn't just stressed. She was hiding something. She was hiding someone. And she had lied to my face again and again, with a smile, like none of it mattered. The truth was I was broken, not just by her infidelity, but by how little I seemed to matter to her in the end. I couldn't live with the fact that I had been the last person to know what was going on in her life. The last person to realize that I had been sharing a bed with a woman who had already checked out of our marriage. I didn't know what to do next, but I did know one thing. I couldn't keep pretending. Not for her. Not for me. I needed to be honest with myself for once. And the truth was that I didn't recognize the woman who had walked out of that hotel room with Mark. And I didn't know if I ever would again.